So this forum is really just talking about experiences working in or creating a startup in Bangkok. And everyone up here has done it. So we're just going to introduce ourselves briefly, and then hopefully you guys have some questions you want to ask. So I'll start with me. My name is Ben Sherry. I'm with Proteus Technologies. We're one of the sponsors. We're the one that heard. And we do software development off of Akamai soy sauce. And we write network system, web services. One of our clients is ejamming.com that allows musicians to play live over the internet together with no latency. And we build a lot of high availability systems with open source, Python, Postgres, Linux, things like that.
Okay. My name is John Burns. I've got a little company, it's actually just me right now, called travelguide.com. We're building an online travel website. Originally, I came to Thailand 10 years ago to do this, and I started the business one time, failed terribly. But it's still a good idea, and actually it's a better time now, because the things I wanted to do back then, you couldn't do. There just wasn't the tools available, and there wasn't the community available, and there wasn't the critical mass of people available. So, starting over again to do travelguide.com.
I'm Kerrick. I started my first software company when I was 15. Came to Thailand in 2001 after the tech crash. Built my company in London at the time. Felspar is one of the sponsors. There's 4 of us. We do web applications, primarily business applications, using C++, Django, Python on Windows, and now starting to do it on Linux as well.
My name is Carsten. I'm with SETI Software, which is actually a euphemism because I'm doing the company together with a German partner. And if you pronounce the whole thing with a German accent, it means it's a software company. So, no one can.
I know German to get that.
But anyway, so what do? We make web applications and try to make money with them in the online games market. We don't make games, we make stuff in the games market, of which we're trying to make money. So far for us.
Alright, I'm new, I'm slightly hungover. I set up coaching about 4 years ago. Before that, I had another company which was a startup, which got money from VCs, and ultimately went bust, but coaching is doing really well. We've got 20 people, 10 people in London and 10 people in Thailand who build really great websites, platforms, games, video design, and stuff like that. Also, we work with a lot of startups. A lot of our clients are startups, so although I wouldn't necessarily describe us as a startup.
They're not only 2 years now.
Alright, but we work with a lot of startups, the kind of startups that have money and want to get stuff done quickly.
My name is Santoko. I'm helping to set up a company here. I'm just applying for project on setting up the company. I'm working for Japanese newspaper company. I'm developing this website in Japanese for Thailand to make sure that I'm ready. And we publish weekly and we're doing the website work. And then we want to split the company that publishing and the website. And I'm going to help the website from after we set up the company, we will get many projects from Japan and in Thailand as well. We want to just looking for some people working with me and trying to get ideas and projects. I'm not, I shouldn't be there. I'm not doing it, but I'm going to start.
My name is Anthony Bouch, and I was involved in a startup here in Thailand from 2001 to 2005, which was an stock photography agency and an agency representing international photographers specializing in just Asia. It's called onasia.com. It's still there. The company was sold in 2005, and I've been independent since then. Yeah, and it was a good experience. It involved raising capital, raising some debt as well, and the whole process of finding out what your partners are really like, and going through the emotional roller coaster ride of being passionate about something that you started yourself and that you want to succeed, and discovering the pitfalls and the successes in the process.
Okay. Anybody want to throw out a question, or I can start asking? Yes, question.
How do you find a VC?
Well, actually, let's first raise your hand if you've received VC in Thailand. Okay. Well, maybe you can ask the question. Answer the question.
We started by finding a financial advisor who was familiar with both angel and institutional investors here in Thailand. So he was the one who made a lot of introductions for us. There are a few smaller VC firms, formal institutional venture capital firms in Bangkok. But there are also a lot of people around here who are very entrepreneurial, who have money, and if you've got a really good idea, and convince them obviously that it's worth their while, that they will invest.
Yours was a private VC firm that funded you?
No, actually, we ended up with a list of about 6 what are called angel investors, private individuals for business people in Thailand already who decided to invest in them. We actually found it very difficult to raise money with the venture capital firms yet. It was towards the end of the .com period, 2001, so .com investment was really hard. And it was also right in the middle of the SARS epidemic, second round of raising money, SARS, and so we were going to try and get VC firms who had offices in Hong Kong to come and visit us, and they were in travel. It was a tough time.
Were the angel investors really passive investors, or did they want to be part of the management?
They were a combination of passive investors and at least one who we wanted to be an executive director of the company because of their experience in the area.
Actually, I've got a couple points I want to make on VC.
Thanks. I used up most of my voice shouting yesterday. When I had my business here originally in Thailand, I came here in 1998 and set up a business. And I funded it out of my own pocket. I spent quite a bit of money, several $100,000 US, funding the company. And with the idea that I wanted to spend my money up front so I could create the most value and then bring the VC in later. Later, wound up being right at the very end of the .com boom, or you might say the very beginning of the .com bust, which is absolutely the worst time to ask for money when everybody else's stock price is tanking. But what I found here was, Anthony's right, it's very hard to pick venture capital here for several reasons. One, not a lot of companies have venture capital funds here. That has a lot to do with the lack of transparency. There's a lot of shady deals that go down. People scams, shell companies, funds that people set up, and they take the money and they disappear. That's a big problem. VCs don't want to put the money into a market unless there's a guarantee of security, unless they know that the money that they put in is going to be spent wisely. And Thailand's got a very, very poor track record of that. So that's very, very hard for a VC community or VC industry to get built here in Thailand. One story I have, we actually did have a company that had agreed to fund us for $500,000 US, or actually it wasn't travel guide, it was a different product. It was going to be a city guide that was related to travel guide. When the bust happened, they had the money, they put it in a suitcase, and 3 of the principals disappeared. They disappeared with about $5 million in investors' money. That's the reason that people are really a little bit cautious about investing in Thailand, venture capital.
VC probably not your first way to start. Yes, sir.
I would say that, I mean, I don't have experience in Thailand. My experience is in Japan, and I've worked in a startup in Japan before I joined Mozilla. But if you're asking about VC, VC should be coming to you. So you shouldn't be thinking about VCs. You should be thinking about building a good business and getting a lot of customers, and then VCs will come to you and want to give you money. That's my view.
That's true, but there's not a VC culture in Thailand yet.
That's a separate issue. But
On all the companies that I've started, we've never taken VC money to start with. We've occasionally taken angel money after 1 to 2 years, but never VC money. I think you should be able to do without it when you start.
I think it's more hassle than it's worth in Thailand because, I mean, you don't need a lot of money in Thailand if you've got a web idea and you've got a hire. If you can find the right people, it's the people that you're probably not the money really. If you can find the right people, then you can probably bootstrap your idea and get it to the point where you either fail or succeed without ever needing VC capital because realistically it's not going to cost you a lot of money to keep people fed and going, especially if you give them equity and stuff in your idea.
No VC. Real quick, how did you all fund your business? Me, I funded myself, but I had customers right away, so I've been profitable since day one.
Really, really good investments very early on in the dot-com days. I mean, it should look
I've always funded companies out of cash flow. You need to find a customer quickly, and get them to hand you some money. That's much more valuable than VCs.
Profitable day one.
Yeah, absolutely agree with Garrett. Cash flow works. We founded our first company by simply setting it up in our living room. We would have done it in our garage, but we didn't have one.
Comfortable since day one.
How are you funding your company? How are you funding your company?
Okay, my company hungry.
But your company is funding from Japan, right?
I don't know.
Entirely.
Yeah, right. When we started self-funded for the first year, so personal passion and a lot of sweat equity, and then we raised money.
So that's how you start a company. You find a customer. Question?
I have a question. So, is there enough of a market in Thailand to build a product company, or do you have to end up catering to customers abroad or doing an internet business or something else?
Question is if there's a local market for products that you can build a company on top of. Answer to that question for me is I don't know yet. I think so. I'm about to try. If you have a video, you want to raise your hand.
I think it's very difficult for foreign companies. I think if you can find a decent Thai sales manager, then you stand a chance. But my experience tells me that Thai companies are very reluctant to buy from foreigners. They want to buy from Thais, not from foreigners. Even if they're buying foreign products, they should be presented with a salesman who's Thai.
Along those lines, I am looking for a Thai sales.
And I think the answer to that is it depends. Depends on the product. There's certain Thai products that certainly could be sold here and sold effectively here. Other products are not on the market in Thailand, and you have to think about marketing globally.
Question?
Yeah, what is the biggest mistake that you've made with your startup and the lesson that you learned from that when starting up?
We were overly optimistic, like everybody is in the startup, about sales, in our marketing plan. But that wasn't our biggest mistake. Our biggest mistake turned out to be that deep down, the founders, the people who really put in a lot of effort at the beginning, all this sweat equity, actually had different reasons for starting the company. So there were philosophical differences right from the beginning, and those normally showed up when it came time to discuss exit strategies. Did we want to sell the company? Did we not want to sell the company once it had grown to a certain height? They were very different interests, and they were not obvious at the beginning, but towards the end they became really big issues for us.
My biggest mistake was I waited a year longer than I should have. I came here to Thailand to start my company, and I got asked by another company to build them an agile development group. And I did that for a year, did very successful, built them from 13, 20 people organization to a 90-person organization. The second year, they started changing their direction, and because I wanted to keep my team together, I stayed for a year longer than I should have. But I should have. You shouldn't delay. You have the idea and the means to do it.
For the company that I had in London when it passed after the dot-com era, it was not cutting costs quickly enough when the money started to dry up. We built up our cash flow 9 months operating money so we could pay our 40 staff that we had at the time for 9 months. But as it turns out, with the 9/11, we're selling primarily into city institutions, banks, that sort of thing. After 9/11, they stopped buying again. We would have needed about 3 years running money in order to pay the staff. So we did cut staff numbers, but we should have done it much, much quicker when the money stopped coming in.
I can easily say that in my first business, the biggest mistake I made was working hard to build the best product and not getting something out that was just okay fast. I think it's much better to get a product out fast so you get money coming in, and then incrementally. This seems obvious to people now, I think, but this is something that's really, I think people only kind of started to understand in the last 5 or 7 years. And before everyone was like, oh, we make a great product, and then we're going to spend a lot of time up front, getting this thing ready, and then we'll put it out. Get out fast. Get something out fast. It doesn't have to be the best. It has to be just good enough. And then keep incrementally improving, expanding, extending. But get something out so you got money coming in. Like what Jen was saying, people will come to you to get your DC if you have income. If you don't have income, if you're working on the world's greatest product, DC will just ignore you. But if you have a product out there and you have revenue coming in, then people start taking notice.
Yeah, there's a difference between having a product and having a business. Don't confuse the two. That's not what it is. Real quick, because we're going to run out of time. How many people here are interested in starting their own company, or they're thinking about quitting their day jobs and going and working for a startup? What kind of company do you want to start?
Me?
Yeah.
Selling stuff on internet.
Selling stuff on the internet?
Yeah.
Okay.
What stuff? What?
If I can do it, I mean, sexy girl.
Girls. She was taking notes yesterday to talk about stock there. Who else is trying to start something? Yeah.
Building in-house web applications for tons of different ideas. So sort of in-house mini startups. Bunch of
In-house web development.
Yeah.
Somebody else? Okay, another question?
John, one thing I advise, pick your best idea, one product focus on
I have
that.
same problem. I have 20 products, 20 businesses on the internet, and it's like cut off time. But that cut off time is 1 year. I don't want to do this or I don't.
Yeah, it's really easy to come up with lots of ideas, hard to execute on one. Pick one idea, focus on that. Everything is on that idea. Don't get distracted by, oh, we could do this, or oh, we could add this on, or oh, we could. One idea, get that done, get that out.
Okay, question from the very back. You had a question, right?
Yeah, I have a question.
Was it you? Did you have a question?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's the phone starting.
Yes, you.
It's probably just for Luke, I'm not sure, because the others, their company are just in Thailand, right? So it's not an off-branch of your UK or American company or something. That's just Luke's case, right?
So who here is solely existing in Thailand, the company?
Our company did.
So raise your hand if you're only in Thailand.
It did until it was sold. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, it's just Luke, right? And we briefly talked yesterday, and you told me your projects are basically 100% export oriented. It means your customers are all, I don't know, UK or somewhere abroad. I'm curious about how are you including the company here into Coachen's UK profile? I mean, are you keeping a low profile here? Do your customers know?
Yeah, we
that
keep
you
a
are
very
being-
low profile in
Yeah.
Thailand, but it's not a secret. I mean, it depends on the customer. I mean, some customers know about Thailand at some time. And if you look online, it's fairly obvious we're in Thailand as well. But if you go to our website, obviously because we're not selling to Thai clients, there isn't really a lot of mention of Thailand on their hiring pages. So yeah, we just focus on UK and Europe mainly.
So in that case, your advice is rather keeping a low profile and not.
Yeah, well, the thing is, it all comes back to outsourcing being a dirty word. Well, it is a dirty word in IT in some ways. When you say outsourcing or something, someone thinks you're shipping it to a bunch of programmers in a sweatshop in India or something. And what we did was, we didn't outsource to another company in another country. We exported our company to another country so that then we could set up a production in the other country. That way we can control quality and all the other stuff. So for me, it is the same company, just got two offices.
Actually, if you read my website, ProGestEdTech.com, I have a whole concept of the difference between what I call offshore development versus other shore development. And what Luke is describing is an example of other shore development, right? You'll notice none of these guys, we're not outsourcing firms, right? We're not ship a bunch of IT work to another country and do it cheap. We're all invested in Thailand itself for our companies. And we have a totally different model than the offshore structures. Yeah, question?
How can we embed ethics to the humans?
Embed ethics to humans?
Yes. Of growth.
I think it's implantable devices.
How can we plan?
Like the robotics department at
Hong Kong University. Actually, can I make a last really quick point? Just really fast, or rapid fire. What I would say are the 4 top tips for starting a company in Thailand, specifically in Thailand. First, understand your partners and what you guys are trying to achieve. Second, understand the risk and that you may not succeed. Most startups fail. It's like a 70% failure rate or higher. So be prepared to spend the time and the effort knowing that it just may not work out despite your best efforts. Make sure you get legal advice. You have to see a lawyer. If you're going to start signing agreements, shareholders agreements, just agreements over money that the company says they're going to pay you back in terms of sweat equity, you have to have them in good form legal documents. And then in particular in Thailand, especially if you're going to raise money here, make sure that all your filings are perfect. So in every Thai company and Western run Thai company, there's always one person, there's this superstar girl, right, or guy, who's Thai, who knows exactly how to get to the tax office, knows how to do all your filings, like Pomadon Hasit, Pomadon Hasit, Pomadon and Pomadon Galsit, right? You need that person is going to be your star. You're going to have to pay them more than you do probably than other Thai stuff, but they're going to rescue you because they're going to make sure your work permits are in order, all your filings, and you're going to need all of that when you want to raise money because they're going to look at your books and they're going to want to see proof that everything's in order. So that's my 4-point starter plan for starting. Okay, I think.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
Yeah, I set up a company to represent outsourcing company like that. Meaning I collect the work from Thailand and I send it out to people. And it took me a year to realize that actually Thai talent is very good. They're good. They're as good as any other programmers. They're not expensive and they're very flexible, which is not the case in India today. India is very expensive. They have big projects. So the SME projects, they're not interested. So I changed the business model. And I think Thai programmers and designers are really good. So So I've changed totally. I'm no longer outsourcing work to
When I was going to first start Fortius Technologies Asia, I was going to do it in India in '93. I saw that there was going to be a bubble. I went all over Asia. And I had people willing to give me a lot of money to go to China and do it. I didn't do it because of the Great Firewall of China. Now I'm here. And they just passed this new law, which is the law that kept me out of China. I have to really reconsider. But anyway, of all the countries in South Asia, well, all regions that I could have gone to, I picked Thailand for a very good reason, because of the people. And BarCamp has confirmed my suspicions that there's a good underground population of people who are interested in being technical because they enjoy it. And that's the kind of people that need to be in startups like what we see here. And that's what we're all looking for. So I think the privilege of the last statement. We're done. Thank you.